treat your time like it's valuable. Your actions and your behaviors will start aligning with that mindset, and the actions are what dictate results. So you will start getting the results of someone whose time is valuable if you start actually acting that way. Welcome, everyone, to the Close More Sales podcast. Today, we are diving into a critical topic that, frankly, doesn't get enough airtime. And that is, what should your mindset be when you are actively having a sales conversation? And we will explore that thought process through a very specific lens. And that is the power of non-neediness in sales. This isn't just about avoiding the desperation that can creep into your voice when you really, really want the sale. It's about cultivating a kind of inner strength and consistent mindset that says, I don't need this sale. And believe me, that's when you actually start to see your success rate climb, when you're able to do that consistently. Our purpose, the purpose of this show, is to empower sales professionals and entrepreneurs to push themselves to grow, achieve unimaginable success without burning out, and ultimately transform their lives. I'm Ian Ross, and I am obsessed with all things sales. And I work with teams across the country to make more money by asking better questions. The most proven path to achieving financial freedom is maximizing your earning potential. And a sales role is the lowest barrier with the highest possible ceiling for entry onto that path. Anyone can become a killer salesperson with the right techniques, mindset, and consistency. Everything we cover on this podcast is geared towards one thing: helping you close more sales so that you can live the life you want. This is still a newer podcast, which means we are in the growth stage. And if you get any value from this episode today, follow, subscribe, let us know either in the comments on YouTube or in a review where you listen to podcasts. Tell us what it is you got out of the show. Because if you have conversations where how well you speak determines how much money you can make, you are in a sales role. And if you would like to get better at what you do, text CLOSE, CLOSE, to 33777, and we'll see if we can help you out along the process. First, to cover here, I want to talk about this non-needy mindset and answer a really important question, which is, why is non-neediness such a game changer in sales? What is the point of it here? Simply put, in a one sentence line, I can say that by being non-needy, it puts you in a position of power, so to speak. And when you are in a position of power, you're able to control the conversation. When you are able to control the conversation, you're able to guide the prospect towards the sale, towards coming to the conclusion, coming up with the reasons themselves as to why they would want to move forward with you. That's the simple answer here, but it goes deeper than that. The key concept to break down is embracing a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. It is thinking about how to feel, simply put, like you have $1 million in the bank. If I had $1 million in the bank liquid, I wouldn't need any particular sale that I'm having on any individual day. There's no one conversation that's going to make or break me, chances are, because theoretically, I'm not selling anything that's going to increase my net worth double in a moment. It could make me quite a bit of money for some of the things I sell, but it's not going to make or break me. I'm able to operate from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. So I want to break down a few concepts here in terms of how to think about this, why to do it, and what you should do consistently going forward to put yourself in this position. So first, why does it matter that we want to focus on non-neediness? And also, what do I even mean by non-neediness? If you haven't heard that term before, what exactly am I talking about? Simply put, there's two main types of salespeople that most people encounter. And if you ask the average person on the street, what do you think of when you hear the word salesman? They're going to imagine someone in a suit or someone who's knocking on a door or standing near a used car, who talks too fast, who sounds really slick, and who uses high pressure tactics, who forces someone to try and buy something that maybe they don't want to buy. This is differentiating yourself in an opposite way compared to that person. So let me break that down here. If I had $1 million in the bank, and if you do as well, which I'm not that liquid, right? If I actually had access to that at any given time, it allows me, when I am having a sales conversation, to no longer give off commission breath, to not sound like I need the deal, to not sound like this prospect needs to do this or I'm going to struggle. When I adopt that type of mentality, if I'm forcing you, no, you need this, you definitely need to buy this thing, you definitely need to buy this service, you definitely need to buy this car, you got to get this plan, you got to get solar, you got to get whatever. If I am trying to force you towards that, what happens is pretty profound. You may think, based on how you were trained or what you've seen on TV or in movies, that if I'm super certain that you definitely need this, I can transfer my certainty to you, and therefore you will want to buy. It is a highly ineffective way to get most people to want to purchase anymore. Because if I am focusing on my certainty, what happens is I run the risk of the prospect raising their resistance to the idea because I feel desperate. I feel needy. I feel like someone who doesn't have their stuff together, and therefore, in a way, almost shouldn't be trusted and can't be trusted. Because if you need to get this done, you are thinking more about yourself as the salesperson than as me, the potential client or prospect or customer, right? Like the very nature of being in a scarcity mindset means you are more selfishly thinking than if you are focused on what your prospect is going through. If you are experiencing pushback from your prospects when you're talking to them about trying to get this done and all the benefits there and why they should do it and should they or shouldn't they, you are running a high-risk game to be focusing on your certainty for them to get this done. I think about this in a different way, and I do this constantly with the conversations I have. If I am able to slow down and have someone say to me, hey, like, you're a sales trainer or a sales coach, like, why should you train my team? Why should you coach me as the leader of a sales team to get my team better? Like, why you? If I get asked that question and I start rattling off all the great things about me, it puts me in a lower position of status for two main reasons. First off, if I'm like answering their question directly and just listing all the things that I'm so great about, inherently people just tend not to believe salespeople when they are talking about how great something is. So if I start listing about how great I am, how great my product is, I run the risk of just making the person go like, I don't believe you, right? Like people feel okay lying to salespeople the same way they feel okay lying to police officers, right? That you get pulled over. Do you know how fast you were going? Do you know why I pulled you over? No idea, officer. Yeah, of course you know why you were pulled over. It's the same idea here, right? People feel like, well, I'm allowed to lie to salespeople. Salespeople are lied to constantly, and I can prove it because you're doing it as well, even if you are a salesperson. When you walk into a store and the salesperson walks up to you, they ask the same question almost in every store, which is, can I help you find anything? And what do we say in response? No, I'm just looking. But chances are you're not just looking. I'm certainly not just looking when I walk into a store, and I can be inclined to say that same thing because we have been told throughout time that it's okay to lie to the salesperson because if I'm honest with them, they will force me to buy something that I don't want. This is sort of the general cultural acceptance of what it's like for someone who works in sales. Like that's what the general populace thinks of salespeople as doing. If they think it's okay to lie to you, they also are assuming you are lying to them. That's just the way it sort of goes. They might not have it as directly, but it is definitely in the back of their mind because they're existing in a place of dishonesty. This is just what we're working with. There's nothing we can do around this. This is the reality of the world that we live in as sales professionals. To get back to that earlier question, if I am asked, why you? My answer, and you can find a way to think about this for your own product or service right now. My answer is actually pulling back a little bit and trying to get the prospect to then sell me on why they should do this. So rather than going, hey, why should I hire you as a sales trainer? And responding to that with, well, because I'm great at this and I've gotten these results and I can send you testimonials here and average amount people increase is this, this, and this. I will be more inclined to say, I'm not sure you should yet. And the reason I'm not sure is because the fact that you're even asking me that question, you're asking so many questions, implies to me that you might be more analytical than on average. And the experience is that of analytical people, only about 20% of them are able to take action on advice they've been given within a 2 to 3 day period. They usually need a little bit longer, usually about a week plus. If we're meeting every week to get your sales team to perform and I tell you something to do and you don't take action for 4 days and I only have 3 days of results of your sales team doing it instead of the full 7, it's going to be hard for me to coach you. So I'm not entirely sure I'd be a good fit for you, even by the nature of that question. What did I just do? I positioned myself in a place of authority by pulling away and trying to reframe how the structure of that conversation should go. That conversation is now no longer, I need to sell you about how great I am, but instead it's, I'm not even sure you're the right person for this product. I'd have to ask you more questions to feel confident that you'd be able to get the best use out of it. I'm not sure if this would make sense for you. And I can be more comfortable doing that if I am operating from a place of abundance. If I am operating from a place of scarcity, it's going to be really hard to push away that way. If I feel like, oh my gosh, I need this deal so badly. I'm struggling for money. If I don't close this, I'm not going to be able to afford insurance. I'm not going to afford my mortgage, right? Like you start getting nervous and scared. And then what happens is you start coming off with commission breath and giving, to use a modern term, giving your prospect the ick, right? Because you sound like, oh, we can definitely get this done. So a simple way that you can start embracing this is to also be willing to operate as if you had already gotten the sale in your conversation and you're just thinking like a consultant, right? All you're trying to do is figure out what is best for your pre-existing client who's already paid you. That's a pretty minor shift, but can feel massive to actually implement. If I am talking to you, instead of going, yeah, we got to get this done. Like, let's get you signed up. Let's get you started. Let's get this solar on your house. Let's get your family covered life insurance. Let's get you in this Ferrari. Let's get you in this high ticket training program. Let's get you signed up with this fitness professional so you can lose that weight and finally feel amazing. If I start changing that conversation to assuming they have already paid me and I am just the consultant who has their best interest at heart, it allows me to stop trying to force someone to get this done and pull back and operate with real curiosity to figure out what their problem actually is so I can make sure I'm pointing them in the right direction. So let's dive into some more techniques for you to cultivate this non-neediness approach as a sales professional yourself so that you can actually be more effective in your conversations. How can you develop this non-needy attitude? It starts entirely with your mindset, with the internal conversation that you are having with yourself on a daily basis, and it filters down into your everyday sales practices. It filters into the conversations you're having, the activity you're doing, and what you are actually doing every single day to be able to perform, to be able to get the results you want to do. The most important aspect of non-neediness, of being an effective salesperson, is understanding completely and fully that your time is valuable. I need to repeat this again because it is so important. Right now, if you are listening to this conversation or listening to this podcast, sorry, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you need to incorporate this idea immediately, which is your time is valuable. I don't care if you're paid 100% commission and you feel like, no, my time's not valuable. Only the results I get are worth any value. You have to get rid of that thinking entirely, even if that is entirely true within the objective metrics of the market. Because you get your commission, you get your results with what you are spending your time on. If you can stop feeling like it's okay to waste my time on a prospect who's not a good fit and embrace a new mindset, which is my time is valuable. This person has already signed up. I am a consultant now who just has their best interests at heart. However, I'm not entirely sure that this is going to be worth my time. I need to proceed appropriately because my time is valuable. It puts you in a position where you can ask deeper questions. You can pull away. You can be someone who inherently is the type of professional that people want to work with. People want to do business with you. I can relate this to dating as well. Imagine if this is the exact equivalent. If I sat down across from a girl at dinner and I said, oh, I would make the best boyfriend. I'll be the absolute best boyfriend to you. You got, like, I know this is just our first date, but just you wait. Like, I'm going to dote on you so nice. It's going to be the nicest thing. I'll put your slippers on. Oh, I'm the absolute best. I'll pay for dinner. I'll be so nice. It's like, the reaction is going to be various forms of, ew, get the hell away from me. But if I sit down with this approach of, now that we're out to dinner, I'd love to learn more about you and see if we're compatible. If we're not, that's totally okay. We can part as friends, to use some sort of sales terms that many of you are probably using frequently. We can part as friends, but I'd love to learn a little bit about you to see if we're going to be a good fit. Tell me about you. That is a different framing of that conversation. Most of you, if you're not thinking intentionally about how to come off this way, a lot of the tactics and questions and ways you are describing your product or service is closer to that first example in the date than the second. You are coming off as pushy, as trying to get someone signed up, as making sure, like, I got to get this for you, rather than, I'd love to see if this is a good fit or not. I'm not sure entirely yet. I need to learn more about you first before I can be confident in making that recommendation. And I use that general principle at all aspects of the sales conversation, no matter whether I am doing a prospecting call or we're having a phone call with someone who's already signed up, who's just trying to consider if they want to renew. It doesn't really matter to me. That general approach puts me in the category of someone people want to do business with because my time is valuable. You can come along for the ride if you'd like. And what does it look like? How do you actually get to this point? If you want to be a high-performing sales professional, if you want to be the type of person whose time genuinely is valuable, what's the most effective way to get to that place? You've probably heard a version of this before, but it's worth detailing here. One of the greatest hacks to being able to get to the level that you want to be at is acting as if. If I act as if my time is valuable, I will start building the behaviors, the habits of someone whose time is valuable. If I do that consistently, have the behaviors, actions, and habits of someone whose time is valuable, guess what tends to happen? Your time tends to become valuable. This is inherently true for so many wealthy, successful people, is that they act a certain way, and that's what the reality is like. And if you want to get to that stage, you need to start acting that way as well. I don't mean, I need to make sure we differentiate here. I do not mean fake it until you make it. I am not talking about renting a Lamborghini or paying for a dinner you can't afford. That is an external. That's such a separate thing from actually treating your time as valuable. Plenty of people who don't have any money think that wealthy, successful people spend all their time buying luxury goods. It's so far from the truth. It operates so little of their thought process. Part of the reason you think that is because that's what appeals to the masses on social media. And there's also grifters who do that to try and demonstrate that they're wealthy. So as a result, you see them buying the Ferrari, you see them buying the Rolex, you see the wealthy vacation, you see that aspect and think that that's what wealthy people spend all their time doing. It's such a small fraction of their time. Most of their time is spent prioritizing what they're going to be spending their efforts on, which is their time. We all have the same amount of time in a week. As a result, the people whose time they can use to make an incredible amount of money if they would like to, have to prioritize that time and make sure that time is spent appropriately. That means not wasting their time on conversations with people who will never turn into any value for them whatsoever. That is a really, really, really key point that you need to keep in mind. If you want to get to that place, sure, I mean, you can definitely network with millionaires. They are absolutely out there. They're all over the place. It's not that hard to find. You can go to networking events and network with millionaires. But chances are you're going to come across as someone who wants something from them, who's trying to get in their radar rather than being someone who's worthy of being in their radar, because your time is valuable as well. If you want to get to that place, you need to immediately treat your time as if it is worth something. It's not worth nothing because you're not theoretically paid by the hour. You are paid for your results. You get your results by spending your time on the right things. Treat your time like it's valuable. It's the best way to start establishing yourself as someone who's worthy of being in those rooms, of getting the results, of closing the deals that allows you to genuinely have your time be valuable. Not fake it till you make it, but if you can adopt the mindset, my time is valuable, I need to act appropriately. That means your habits, your actions, and your behaviors will start aligning with that mindset, and the actions are what dictate results. So you will start getting the results of someone whose time is valuable if you start actually acting that way. A shift here then also in terms of your sales conversations, if I am no longer coming off with that heavy commission breath, I'm simply acting like a consultant who has your best needs in mind, I can shift from getting the prospect to feel like I am trying to sell them on something, and I am simply trying to help them. My goal in every single interaction is to provide value, whether or not the sale closes. I'm not trying to provide so much value that it does not serve me, but I want to make sure that this conversation I'm able to provide value to the prospect and make sure my time is not wasted in the exact same moment. And this is how I'm able to pull back and ask the type of questions and be careful with my time. Another aspect here is a certain level of detachment from the outcome and using maybe sort of strategic pausing to make sure I am not coming off like I have that commission breath. A big part of non-neediness involves seeing yourself as separate from your role as a salesperson and by extension, the results you are getting as that salesperson. And you do this by reminding yourself daily that your self-worth isn't tied only to your sales success. And you can also use strategic pauses when you're actually in that conversation. So if you make a key point, pause, let it hit. If you are asked a tough question, pause. Make sure you are actually showing that you are thinking it over. If you are given a difficult objection that you're not sure how to overcome, Pause. Let there be silence. Let it show that you are intentional with what you say back. Why is this so important? Because it is the exact opposite of what most salespeople do. So many salespeople fill silence with gibberish. When they feel that pressure, they feel like they're unable to think clearly, or they're put on the spot and they don't know exactly what to say. Do they let the silence sit there? Do they embrace awkward silence? Of course not. They don't. They start jabbering. They start saying stuff that doesn't make sense. They start being like, "Oh yeah, we could cover that, a little bit later, and we'll get back to that in a second." They start flapping their lips. Nothing of value is coming out, and we are crossing our fingers, right, as the salesperson, hoping that the prospect can't tell we don't know what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if the what you say theoretically is not such gibberish that that on a transcript, someone couldn't tell you don't know what you're talking about. But your tone, your rate of speech will dictate that you don't know what you're talking about, and they will get that sensation even if you sort of fooled them on paper with what you said. A way to get around that is to know, I have $1 million in the bank. I don't need this sale. To know that, even though it might not actually be true yet. And if I know that my time is valuable because I don't need this sale, and I know what I can make for my time, and I have $1 million in the bank, I don't need any individual conversation to go my way because it will not affect my life. I'm totally fine. I'm not operating from scarcity. I am operating from abundance. It allows me to genuinely detach from the outcome in a field that is inherently tied to performance metrics. And I get to do that by also reminding myself based on my goals. I've talked about this before. It's worth touching on again because we are all oriented towards our goals, towards what we're trying to get done. If my goals, and I mean the daily reminder for my goals, if it is based entirely on results, just purely how many deals I close or how much money I make, rather than the behavior it takes to get those results, I'm focusing on the wrong thing. So my goals are based on my behavior rather than simply the outcome. They're based on the calls made, the number of presentations, how much of a quality conversation I had when consulting with someone about whether or not it made sense for them to move forward or not, rather than just focusing on the outcome. The outcome will come to me if I am operating from a place that I don't necessarily need this, and I'm focusing on making sure the conversation is good and I'm able to provide value. You already paid me, even if you haven't. I can operate that way. Let me make sure I have your best interests in mind, and I know my time is valuable at the same time, so I don't want to waste your time. The end of each day you have as a salesperson, it's worth also reflecting on what you did well, regardless of whether it resulted in a sale. Why is that important? Because it reinforces the idea within yourself that your goal of being behavior focused and trying to perform your very best is a worthy pursuit. There is value in the activity rather than the results. And that will help differentiate your identity and your ability to be someone whose time is valuable from simply the results, which by having that abstraction, that difference between the results and who you are, right? What you feel like you are worth and the results you're actually getting. If you can separate those two, it allows you to make who you actually are worthy of the types of behaviors of someone who's getting better results than you are getting right now, because you're not so tied to what you actually did last week. You are tied to feeling worthy of your behaviors. When you're not coming off as needy as well, it allows you internally, it's not just the sensation that you give your prospect that you are not needy and therefore they want to work with you. It prevents you from feeling needy, feeling that spike in stress because I need this deal. And when you are not feeling that neediness, when you're not coming off with commission breath, it also allows you internally to focus on what your prospect is saying and try and solve their problem rather than waiting for your turn to speak because you're so focused on what you have to say to get the sale. I'm going to repeat that. If I am operating from a consultative place, I am able to actually hear what my prospect said to me and focus on solving their problem rather than going, oh, they're talking. Wait, oh, I'm going to say this next thing. And thinking as they're talking about what I'm going to say next to try and close the sale. And the best way to close more sales is to be focusing on what your prospect is saying rather than thinking about what you're going to say next. So it's this weird sort of catch-22 because if you want to be the type of person who gets those type of results, the best way to do it is actually not to be focused on trying to get those results. It can feel weird, but I promise you see this so many times. Once you are able to start getting a little bit of success, more success comes your way. This does not simply happen because money follows money and stuff like that. There's an aspect of that. But part of the reason it happens is because once you start becoming successful, aka financially, you are okay. You're not operating from scarcity. You're able to be a little bit more abundant in your thinking because you're not worried about paying your next bill. You're not worried about your next paycheck coming in. What happens is that you detach from trying to get this done. Oh, I need this so badly. And that allows you to be more sophisticated with your questions, to focus more on what was said to you, and give off the impression that you don't need the business and therefore are inherently someone that they want to work with. And then you close more sales, get more clients. All of that happens by extension of being successful. So if you want to enhance your listening skills, stop focusing on what you're going to say next. Stop thinking about that and actually listen to what they're saying to you. If I'm actually listening to your problems and concerns and treat it like I've already made money off you, I don't need to focus on the idea of whether or not I can get this done. Instead, I can go, this is not that important to me right now because my time is valuable and you've already paid me. So let me just see if I can solve your problem. It puts you in the position to be more effective. So let's break down, again, the main points. If you can adopt these things, you will develop more success and close more sales. It's simple, but it's also difficult to actually do. Like simple in theory, difficult to actually do. I want to act like I have $1 million in the bank. First, I'm just $1 million liquid. Let me just feel that internally. If I can have that thought process and approach, I will be able to not have commission breath because I don't need any individual sale. And that will allow me to be more effective at my conversations. Just embrace that entirely. 2, my time is valuable. Repeat this out loud to yourself every day if you need to. This is not an invitation to be a dick or to be rude to people, because most of the successful people that I know, they're actually incredibly polite to most people. Getting successful, being self-made that way, usually, despite the narrative in society, usually it means they had to help other people to be able to get that level of success, usually. And so most of the people that I interact with who are significantly more successful than me are very polite and accommodating and interested in other humans and able to try and help them. It might not seem that way if you've spoken to them, because if you are asking for their time is valuable. And if you're thinking, oh, I just asked this multimillionaire for coffee and he just said no to me. I thought you were saying successful people were polite. Well, you have to ask yourself this. If that successful person, if his time is valuable, he could theoretically choose to make more money in that time than you're asking him to go spend on a coffee with you for free. If he could make money in that time, he or she could donate that money to charity, right? This is a theoretical, but it's a real truth. If they could choose to spend that time doing something productive that allows them to make more money, and that money could be donated to a charitable cause, you have to actually think, is my conversation over that coffee more valuable than that successful, wealthy person donating what they could make in an extra hour? If you're asking for 15 minutes, it takes more than 15 minutes to meet you for coffee and travel there and get back into the mode for other things, you're asking for a lot more than 15 minutes. You're asking for a significantly longer time in terms of percentages for that successful person to spend their time on you. And if their time could be spent making money something else, that they could be donating to a charity to save orphans, you have to think, is my conversation worth more than the money that could go to pay for food for orphans? So it's not that that most wealthy, successful people are rude because now that they don't care about the little guy. It's just that their time is more valuable than what you could offer in that time because they could do other things with that money. That's just a reality of it. So most of the people I know who are quite successful are far more accommodating. That can also happen to me, and I've seen it happen more frequently where I feel their accommodating nature because I'm able to provide value to them, which in the past, maybe I wasn't able to. And if I wasn't able to, I was probably guilty of the same types of thoughts that some of the listeners might be now, which is thinking, therefore, those people must be selfish because they're not giving me the time of day. I've learned that is not the case. It is simply that their time is valuable. Start making your time be valuable. Make your time be valuable by treating like it's worth something and not spending time on people who never have any chance to potentially buy from you. If I'm spending all this time on someone who would never move forward, who would never take action, who tells me they don't have the money, who doesn't have the will, doesn't have the mindset, the idea of acting like a consultant that I've already sold them completely goes out the window because they've disqualified themselves entirely. I am pushing to let you try and disqualify yourself. In that earlier example I gave, where if someone said, well, why you? And I can go, I don't know, why you? Being able to do that, if they go, well, I don't know if I want to do this then, I go, great, let me know if you want to. But I don't necessarily need this. If I'm comfortable doing that because I act like I have $1 million in the bank. If you can consistently do this on every single interaction that you have, again, not faking until you make it, just knowing your time is worth something, you will start coming off as a non-needy individual. You don't need something from the person. You're happy to have a conversation, to ask questions, to learn about them. But embracing this mindset is not simply an extension of I want the sale. It's understanding that neediness on its own means I need external validation of me to show my worth, right? That's what neediness is. I need other people to validate. Non-neediness is knowing that my skills and my worth have been developed enough that I don't need you to tell me that. I already know this. I know this inherently because I've proven it. But if you haven't proven it yet, if you haven't made the type of money yet, the best way to get to that place is to start having the actions, habits, and behaviors of someone who actively is in that place. Because those things, your habits, your behaviors, and your actions, they all lead to those results. The best way to start taking that action is to feel it internally. You take action for what you feel like. The conversation you have in your own head, oh, I'm no good. How can I act like I have $1 million? I don't know anyone who's got $1 million in the bank. Like, I'm no good. That internal dialogue comes out in your actions and behaviors. And if you are having the actions and behaviors of someone who's saying that to themselves all the time, it's going to be very difficult for you to consistently get those types of results. Increasing your overall effectiveness as a sales professional is entirely built around knowing your worth. And so if your skills don't feel like they're up to that bar yet, and you want to get your skills up there, are you doing stuff like listening to this podcast, maybe joining our community, like investing in yourself to try and get your skills better? Oh, you are. By the very nature of listening to this podcast, you're the type of person who is investing in getting their skills better. That means you are on the path to that. So act accordingly. Stop acting like an imposter and start acting like someone who's on the path. I was talking to someone, I was coaching a salesperson in the community I think it was just yesterday now, who was talking about, he was using the term, I'm a work in progress. Yeah, it's a work in progress. And I had to stop him and say, you're using that phrase, I'm a work in progress, as kind of like a way to be polite to yourself, to not talk too meanly about yourself because you didn't get the results for what you're trying to do. And that's nice rather than going, I'm no good. However, you're also using that term to mask your feeling of inadequacy. Successful people are a work in progress as well. That's the nature of self-development. I am a work in progress. We're all works in progress. I'm trying to get better all the time. So that means you are already at the place of someone successful, because a successful person is a work in progress as well. You don't just arrive once you get your skills up. That's not how that works. You're always trying to get better. So if you are listening to this podcast, it means you're someone who's trying to get better, which means you are already in the state of mind to be able to be successful, because successful people are also trying to get better. They don't feel like they've arrived. You might think, if once I've made this much money, $1 million, maybe it's once I have $1 million in the bank, I'll have actually arrived. I promise you, you won't. You will not feel that way. It's just not usually how it works. You have some other goal now. You've got some other thing you're working on. It's the nature of getting better. Understand that you are already in the same place. You already have the mindset of someone who is $1 million liquid, who is, if you're already at that stage, you want to get more, who's $1 billion, right? Like whatever you need. It doesn't matter. That the idea of getting better means that they're trying to be on that path. So if you are listening to this podcast, you're already on that path. Act accordingly. Your time is valuable. So we wrap up today of the Close More Sales podcast. I hope you gained some perspective here. This wasn't as deep a dive into different tactics and skills or a breakdown of different quotes. I just wanted to talk directly about making sure that you internally, as an individual, know your time is valuable, and that I want to come off as non-needy in my interactions. I want to pause. I want to ask questions. I want to pull back and pull away. I'll probably do another episode in the future about the specific tactics I would do through different scenarios to demonstrate this non-neediness, right? Because I also got to be strategic about how I demonstrate that non-neediness. But if I am not feeling internally like I am worthy of doing those actions, it will always come across as false anyway. And you can make the shift. You can choose to make this shift that I'm already on the path to getting better. Like, I'm trying to improve. I'm listening to this podcast. That's an aspect of investing in yourself. Why? You might be like, well, I haven't spent any money to invest in myself, but you spent time to listen to this podcast. Your time is valuable. Act accordingly. If you are ready to transform your mindset and your sales approach so that your results actually align, text CLOSE to 33777. If you would like to surround yourself with people pushing themselves to get better every single day. I'm Ian Ross. This has been the Close More Sales Podcast.